This is not a complete DOD delete, it's just disabling the DOD lifters while still using the same lifters. This cannot be done if you're going to change the lifters. You need to change the valley cover plate. The goal is to cover the port in the backside of this hole so the DOD lifters cannot be deactivated. All of the seals need to be cut on the gasket so that oil pressure cannot build up on the backside of the DOD lifter and release it. This is explained much better in Cray's Performance and Repairs VLOM modification explained video. I'll put a link to it in the video description. But for now, let's get on with making this oil passage job. Well, let's hope it works. Still got to cut a slot in it. Quick little deburr and a wash to get all the chips off of it, and maybe it's not perfect, but it's close enough to perfect. So my overall dimensions ended up being about 565 with a length of just over a ½ inch. It's got a little bit of a chamfer on this edge, so that's the edge I'm sending down into the hole first. Find out if this works. One thing I'm kind of wondering about is if I should put something on that to help it seal or help it stay in place, but it should stay perfectly in place because it's going to go down against the shoulder in the hole. It shouldn't go anywhere because there's no pressure coming from the backside to it. The pressure's coming up the middle, so it should be just fine with nothing holding it in other than friction. And the goal is to block that little hole on the back edge. So you put the slot away from it, set a socket on top of it, and if you cut it the right size, it'll tap right down in there. I hope you cut it the right size. Now the reality of this is this should tap down in there, not have to be beaten down in there. If it's too big, I'm gonna have to pull it out and make another one, I guess. Oh, it's moving. Yeah, it's moving, but I may have to. It's moving, but I may have to hit it a little bit harder. I may have to put a little more support under it so it doesn't bounce so much. An unending supply of 2x4s. And make sure I don't get underneath something that I'm going to break. Because, as I've said before, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm learning. Well, that could be a little smaller. You know, if that thing's too long, I'm going to be really screwed because I'm never going to get it back out of there. I'm not getting a bigger hammer so I can beat on it harder. I'm getting a bigger hammer because that one has too much bounce to it. We are almost there. That was it. I felt it. Yep. She reached the bottom of the threads. She's looking good. Take a look at that. Tell me what you think. I think that'll stop oil flow. I'd like to say thanks to Cray's Performance Repair for taking the time to make his detailed video so I was able to learn how to do this. Check out the link in the video description. All right, we're going to bolt this down and pray that it works. I still have to do the wiring harness and all that stuff yet after I put the intake on, and of course I got to tune DOD out of the computer. And don't worry, I'm not hammering these home with this, I'm just running them in. I will use a torque wrench. That's why they have a variable speed trigger on them. Well, apparently that was a success. Well, at least I believe it was a success. Let's get on to breaking some end mills. So you see what happened was the bolts down here where I've got this mounted at the bottom came loose, and I broke that, tore that end mill up. Anyway, then I decided rather than try another end mill, I would try something a little bit different, and I chucked a hole saw into the collet, and I'll be damned, it worked. Doesn't have to remove as much material, it just has to remove the edges. And this hole saw isn't even that good, has a few missing teeth, but it worked. Took out the material I needed to take out. Now I just got to clean it up a little bit with the grinder. Saved me a whole lot of grinding time. I am quite sure you're not going to find this in any of the machinist handbooks. It's probably illegal, immoral, and definitely dangerous. But it worked. It was a whole lot faster than the end mill because it didn't have to remove as much material. If the bolts hadn't come loose and I hadn't broken an end mill, I probably never would have tried this. But I'm glad I did. It works really good. This is what it looks like right now when it's somewhere where you can actually see it in the light. Just got to smooth this out, take that edge off, and then it'll clear my fuel rail. And of course, we will resort to methods of the ancient barbarians. Of course, ancient being after the invention of the screwdriver. See if this will snap off. No, it won't. So we're going to have to grind into there, cut into there. And this is what it looks like after cutting all the clearances on it. All of that steel that was back here is gone. And it has clearance around the fuel rail. And the alternator sits too low in here, so the solution for the alternator is spacers. These are just temporary spacers and a couple temporary bolts I grabbed just to get my spacer height right. Spacers are a little taller than what they need to be. So GM originally on the ls4 had a curve on the back of this casting that comes up and kind of protects this from, I would guess, the fuel rail, minor fuel leaks getting right on the alternator. So I'm going to go with what they did, and I'm going to make a sheet metal tray that comes across underneath these bolts, comes around underneath here and kind of wraps around the alternator, just to kind of keep it from, you know, any fuel leaks going straight into the alternator, because my understanding is, I'm not sure about this, but fuel and electricity don't mix very well. But what I do find interesting is that the truck motors don't have anything like that on the back of them. So it's probably fine the way it is. Woohoo! Now on to more fun with wiring. Will this thing ever run again? I have no idea what I'm doing here. Place your bets. Alright, like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, and as always, thanks for watching.